Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. Of course, besides me, you familiar watchers of Stay Curious know is Mikey Haddad. Hey, Mike.
Good to be here, Mark. Good
Great
to
to
be
be
back
here
again.
yourself. So
Absolutely.
good. How's your summer going?
Good, good. A lot of
Yeah.
traveling, spending time with the grandkid. So
Good,
yeah,
good. You live out there in Cocoa Beach, I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Did you watch the Falcon 9 yesterday afternoon from there?
Watch the launch and the double boosters right to the ground. We can see it right from where we live.
I
It was
watched it through
amazing.
binoculars, very clear
Yeah,
day, and I could watch those Falcon 9
yeah.
boosters coming back as something else,
It was
isn't it?
beautiful. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
beach was, of course, packed for it, so a lot of people knew it was happening. So it's a
Yeah.
good day.
Hot
Yeah.
summertime here in the middle of Florida. Come on down and check out our American Space Museum. Let me go backwards there. There we are. There's the front of our entrance here. Mikey's been on our Stay Curious program over 2 years, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
appreciate you sharing. He wrote this book with David Shaler, uh, uh, payloads, Space Lab payloads. I've learned the difference between Space Lab and Space Hab.
Mm-hmm.
Space Hab's a shorter version of the Space Lab, and learned so much. We sell this book in our museum. I think it's on Amazon and such like that.
Yes, sir.
It's about the people of the NASA program that put the payloads in the payload bay. They're a specific unit of employees called Level 4, which is Level Three's processed ahead of them, and Level 5, I don't know, was that the...
Yeah, I'll go and explain that again. Yeah, which is a good point because it's something we talked about in the past, but I want to explain it again today.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I thought it was like, when's the test to take Level 5, up there,
Yeah,
no.
we'll explain all that.
But you become
Absolutely.
a great friend of the museum. He's enhanced our Shuttlefest programs, and we're going to have a meeting tomorrow with the committee of Shuttlefest 4. It's going to be
Mhm.
the Hubble telescope plus 35 years. We're getting the Goddard Space facility involved in it, and just have a brainstorm a meeting and of where we're going to go with Shuttlefest 4, April 12th and 13th. And Mikey's a big key to that. You brought us some great people on Shuttle 3 when we talked about Astro 1 and 2 and the Ulysses and Galileo.
That was a
probes.
lot of fun. A lot of fun. It was
Yeah.
good to see all the people there.
Astronaut
people
J.D.
interested in it.
Bartow had a great.
Yep.
Scott Vongen. We need to get Scott back in the seat here. So
Okay.
I need
We'll
to
work him.
shout out to him.
Sure.
He's another Level 4 guy that was an astronaut in backup, so to speak, behind Sam Durrance and a couple other
Yes, sir.
astronauts there. So today, Mikey's going to talk about something very special. I know to his heart, dealing, and I don't know much about it, but we love talking about Sally Ride here at our museum. There is our women's gallery that we're so proud of. We have Sally Ride's handprints behind yours, the most well worn.
See
In the
that?
middle is Eileen Collins, the first female pilot and then commander. And Kathy Sullivan is the one furthest away, with another couple dozen of 77 women who've been to space now, all laid out by Nick Enix, our collections manager, who does a great job making our museum look cool, doesn't he?
Oh, it's beautiful here.
In
Anybody, you all got to come see this place. This is amazing what you've got in here.
It is
Absolutely
amazing. A lot of one-of-a-kind things that you're not going to see at the Kennedy Space Center. We're only $10, and we need bushel baskets full of $100 bills like all nonprofits to keep the doors open. So if you find it in your way to donate to us, please let us know there. Let me bring up my pad here. Push a button there. See some of the smiling faces today that are joining us. Of course, I can't see them, Mikey. I see them in my head, you know.
Mhm. Yep.
Sally Ride, before you get kicked off, we love talking about what was really her mantra. She knew young girls needed to see role models.
Mhm.
And famously, I think she said, "You can't be what you can't see." Did any of that rub off on you and dealing with her personally?
Yeah, she was big time into making sure that happened, that she got more girls involved early and all that kind of stuff. And that actually is something we'll talk about a little later. But she was real. I mean, she was really into making sure that happened. It wasn't just talk. Sally was the kind of person when she said she was going to do something, she did it. And this was something that was really near and dear to her heart. Yep, sure was.
Well, one other shot of those handprints that we're so happy to have, harvested by our uh, godfather, Charlie Mars, one of NASA's important managers during the Apollo era through Skylab and Space Shuttle. Uh, and just a very petite lady. You know who put their hands on that? Kristen Stewart, actress in the Twilight movies.
Okay.
She is going to play Sally Ride in some sort of
That's right.
a bio of her, and was in the museum with 3 other Hollywood women checking things out that they could use. Karan Conklin, our executive director, and Nick Enix, our collections manager, and I were the only ones allowed here. We couldn't ask questions, couldn't take photographs, and I didn't know Kristen Stewart from Kristen whatever. All right. Once I was told, it dawned on me who she was. So, heck to get old, isn't it,
Yes,
Mikey?
sir. Yeah, it's tough.
And not know anybody on the late night talk shows unless they got gray hair on them or anything like that. But
Or the
Kristen
music.
Stewart, if you're fans of that wonderful actress, I found out, of the Twilight series and more, had her handprints on Sally Rides. I took a picture with her phone of them there.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Sweet.
well, sir, take it away for us here.
Okay, what I want to do is, for those probably been listening in for a while, you know what level 4 is. Well, I wanted to maybe people that are tying in for the first time kind of describe what level 4 is and how this kind of actually got me involved directly with Sally Ride on a number of things. But what I want to do is kind of describe what level 4 is. Now, kind of the way it works at NASA is NASA hires contractors usually to do the hands-on work, to push the buttons, to turn the bolts on for the flight hardware. It's usually contractors that literally do that. The contractor engineering, contractor technicians, who are the technicians, usually the ones that actually do the physical hands-on work. Then you got contractor operations, contractor safety, contractor quality, and then NASA kind of has a step back overseeing those functions done by the contractor. For level 4, all that contractor level went away. The only contractors were the technicians. Us, and myself particularly, working for NASA, did the contractor function. We did the engineering. We had NASA safety, NASA quality, NASA operations. The only contractor was technicians, which was the Boeing sites, which again, I may be biased, but those were the best technicians on the planet at the time. Those guys did amazing stuff. Taught me a lot in level 4. And so what this is dealing with early in the shuttle program. There's a program called the Space Lab program, which is to fly science on Space Shuttle. It was a joint effort between the European Space Agency, ESA, and NASA. The hardware is actually built over in Europe and then brought here to fly in the shuttle, and it was reusable. It was the basic structures could be reused, and what we did is we would put the experiments inside these basic structures. And again, that was NASA. It was our job to do that work that was normally done by contractors. Very unique. And so this is kind of a picture of the building. It's a Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout building. We're in this kind of on the west side looking east down the building. And you describe kind of what level 4 is. And it's kind of 2 things. It was an organization, which was us. It was also a level of processing. Think of like an assembly line. Level 4 is the beginning of the assembly line. Well, to avoid that confusion, we changed our name to Experiment Integration. And also for a number of other reasons. That way we didn't get mixed up with the actual levels of integration. Now, describe the level of integration is level 4 basically is in the front of this photograph, basically right basically where my head is. And what that was the start of integration. Pieces of experiments, hardware would come from all over the world, and this would be the place it would first see each other. It would be right here in this building on the west end, basically where you see number 1s and 2s and 3s. And basically what happens is you got level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1, which is on the far end of the building. So think of it as an assembly line. And what you're looking at here in there is kind of the different levels of that integration and what we call level 4, level 3, level 2, level 1. The little bullets kind of describe what the hardware is. Just as a general thing, the flight hardware is usually bright white and or gray, a light gray. The rest of that is all ground support equipment used to process the hardware. And so you'll see kind of on the left part, you'll see a kind of a rectangular structure called an MPES, which we're going to talk about today. And then behind it is a pallet. Those are devices that were used to support experiments that would go out.
What
into
numbers, Mikey? 13?
That would be number 5 and number 6.
Oh, okay.
Number 5 and number
Foreground
6,
then.
right in the
Okay.
foreground of the
All right.
photograph. Number 5 is the MPES, number 6 is the pallet. And what those were used for was, again, those are reusable structures. The experiments would be mounted to those, and those were used for experiments that were exposed to the vacuum of space. To the right of that, where you see, I guess it's number 4, you'll see kind of a gray, kind of angled thing, and then kind of a brown one. Those are the gray part is the flight hardware, which are racks. Those racks then think of it as like a bookcase. Experiments would be stuffed in there, but these experiments required fluids, gases, cabling, all kind of things. Our job was to populate those racks with the experiment hardware. And it all happened kind of in this area when you see in the foreground of the. And then what would happen is those racks then would get installed in a pressurized module. So you had a pressurized module, which is a sleeve shirt environment to do the work, or you had the white structures, which are for experiments are out exposed to the vacuum of space. And that's kind of what happened in this building. So as you went down towards the other end of the building, you got more and more integrated. I won't go into too much in that, but this is kind of the job we had in level 4.
The yellow was structures to support these things, and
Yeah.
yellow obviously maybe for safety and but to distinguish them, hey, this is not going to space. You got to take
Right.
this off.
Yeah,
or
this has to
whatever.
come off, or the blue structure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, on all that. So yeah, blue and all that, and yellow and all. Those are all ground support equipment. Okay, so we go to the next one. Okay, so for this particular mission, the first one Sally flew on was STS-7.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one we're going to start with. The reason I'm talking STS-7, it was one of our first payloads that flew in space. Worked on level 4 that we basically did the complete integration of. We'd worked on payloads before STS-7, but STS-7 was really our first mission. And again, it was Sally's mission. So we were kind of, it's fun to be able to fly hardware that flew on our mission. What I'm showing here is we got these basic structures. They first would come to Kennedy Space Center. They would have basically be supported in a different way. And what we needed to do is we needed to put these what we call trunnions. And these were actually the interfaces between this experiment and the shuttle itself. Okay, and that was my job on STS-7, which is great. My first flight hardware assignment was putting these trunnions on an MPES for STS-7. And you'll see primary trunnions, which is basically take out the main load, secondary trunnions and kind of keep it, from rotating. And then you had a keel, which is kind of down at the bottom, hard to see. So that was basically my job was to put those, you see down at the bottom of the keel, was to install that flight hardware for that mission, STS-7. Now, again, this specific mission, this specific payload, Sally didn't work on directly, but because we were flying on her mission, we would every once in a while see her. And we can go to the next picture. And kind of what happened after that, after we got the trunnions and we put them in one of those blue structures now, it's ready to kind of start integration for shuttle. And this was a payload that flew on STS-7 with Sally. It's called OSTA-2, Office of Space and Terrestrial Application. And again, we're going to use acronyms because if you look up at the top, where a mouse is, you don't want to try to say that name every time you're talking
Materia
about
Wissenschaftlich Achterbahn Experiment und Skirtjagd.
Yeah, and it was all German. It was basically German. So I'm going to talk acronyms from now on, if that's okay. And
Right.
if anybody has a question, please ask. But this is basically the hardware that was going to fly on that mission that we were responsible for integrating. And of course, it started out with the trunnions, and then the next picture is actually us installing the flight hardware. This is one of the cans going on. You see the large box on top, the structure. And then kind of where my elbow is, my right elbow, was one of the trunnions. If you kind of could back off, you could see kind of all the bolts and all that for the primary trunnion. That was basically my job to do that. But this is basically integrating this hardware, getting it ready for Sally's mission.
Please point out if you're in the photograph.
I'm not in this one.
And I would point out that these are rare photographs. You weren't allowed to have cameras around.
Right.
A NASA photographer probably took this as part of the daily documentation. Am I right?
Oh yeah, we had to document everything we did. We only documented with the procedures and BIOS and also photographs. Yeah, and so this is one of those showing the can, one of the 3 cans going on STS-7. And that was one of our, okay. Now this is Sally and Anna Fisher. This is basically during some of the testing. Because this was the flight hardware, and again, this is what they're going to see in space, they would support the testing. And so this is Sally and one of the, and Anna Fisher that was there to support some of the testing we were doing for this mission. Again, she didn't work directly on the mission, on our payload, OSTA-2, but there was other payloads that flew on the mission that one of them she was responsible for.
They had garb on there that.
Yeah, the smocks and the clean room outfits, yeah, because they were close to the flight hardware. So they had to have the caps and the gowns and that to protect the flight hardware, yeah. Okay, so this is actually the full complement of hardware that flew on that flight. And again, on the left is kind of the graphic that shows what everything is, and on the right is the actual photograph of the flight hardware. This is at the pad. This is just shortly before launch. We would take a final closeout picture here, and then the doors would close, and we would launch days later. And you could see kind of our payload, the second one from the top, which was the OSTA-2. The one on the top is SPAS 1, which is a shuttle pallet.
Yours is this one right there.
Yeah, ours is that one right there. And then
We're gonna
Sally's
see
is
this,
the one
that's
that's up.
what's behind us in space, by
Yeah.
the way, I believe. Is that correct?
No, it's actually that's the one that's in the front.
Okay.
Yeah, if we go back to the other graphic, yeah, it's the very front one. The one on the very top of that is SPAS 1, which is a shuttle pallet science experiment. And what it was what we call a free flyer deployable. And that would be deployed on orbit by Sally to go out and fly around, and then they'd retrieve it later in the mission. And so this is basically what the hardware looked like before launch. I just wanted to show that kind of as an
Well,
example.
may I interject here that this was an era in 1983. This is a shuttle of the month of June. When the shuttle, what is this? The second flight of Challenger, and looks like 10th or something like that, a whole program. This is when the shuttle was going to be a truck, pay for itself. NASA was very arrogant that forget your single stick rocket companies. Everybody's going to come to us. And
Yes.
this is packed with paid customers. The 2 satellites in there are paid customers.
Yep.
The other science stuff would have fees and so forth. But am I right? You were ready to be a space truck here.
Yeah, it would, and it's exactly right, Mark. It would fly a complement of items. Like this one, you're right, has two satellites that would be deployed, a set of experiments that would stay in the shuttle, and then the very top on the SPAS would be one that's deployed from the shuttle. So, and then you can see from the graphic on the left, getaway special canisters that were basically individual experiments that would look like the ones that were mounted on the front of our payload.
Which I could pay for my experiment if I had the money,
Sure.
or a university or something like that.
And that's exactly what it was.
Dow Chemical, somebody like that wanted to. Okay.
It was a very cheap way of flying stuff into space, getting your experiment
And
into
of
a small
course,
can.
The 10th flight of Challenger, this being the second, that all changed. The fateful.
Yes, and we'll talk about that here in
51
a
hour.
little bit. So that's basically STS-7. Okay, here's a great picture of Sally. I love this picture. This is her on orbit during STS-7, just showing kind of all the stuff she had to do. And it was, yeah, she was super. She was
I love
super
looking
person.
around at pictures, folks. There's a film canister, looks like floating free. Look at, she's got 3 calculators on her right side, notebooks. Just,
Flight procedures on her left there.
1983,
Yeah.
all those switches up there.
Yeah. Okay, now this is actually a view of the SPAS 1 on the RMS, on the arm. Basically, this is was her job was to deploy the SPAS 1. Again, it was one of these things where it gets deployed, flies around for a while, then is retrieved. And this is a picture of her basically on the end of the arm with her ready to release it for its mission.
Sally Ride being one of the first trained on the robotic arm.
She became an expert on the arm, yeah.
And we failed to mention she passed away of cancer in 2012.
Yes.
And that's why we want to keep her legacy alive, to still inspire men and women out there.
Okay, this next picture is really cool. This is a picture from the SPAS itself. Once it was released, of course, it backed away from the shuttle. It took a number of pictures. This is one of them that's really neat, and one I picked out was because you look at it, the arm, Sally positioned it it looked like the number 7. So you can see it, but kind of up at the top part of the shuttle there, where it's basically positioned as a 7. Then they took the picture, and this is all Sally. And this is all Sally's doing. Of course, you can see our payload in the middle
it's
there.
the 7th mission. I
Yeah.
said it was like the 10th. No.
So it's just
the
an awesome
7th
picture.
endeavor, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's depicted on their patch also.
Yes. And so, of course, that was retrieved, and then they came home. Okay, this is the complement for 41G. This is Sally's second mission, and she was responsible for herbs, which is kind of in the middle of that. It was Earth. Let me make sure I got this right. Earth Radiation Budget Satellite that flew on this mission. Now, the hardware we had in Level 4 was the ORS, LFC, MPES in the back, and then the OSTA 3 in front. So that was our complement of hardware that Level 4 put together for this flight. But again, it was a flight that Sally flew on. And again, we would see her every once in a while, even though herbs was her main one, even though we didn't work herbs. She would just come down every once in a while to Level 4 area or the ONC or in the area, and we'd see her and kind of just get to chit-chat a little bit. But she was very, very busy, like most of the crew. But I just wanted to show the complement of 41G. This is the second mission she flew.
She, of course, flew with Bob Crippen again as her commander, John McBride's flight. Kathy Sullivan was on this, 2 women. Kathy Sullivan and Sally Ride standing side by side. What did that look like?
It was great. It was
No,
fun.
I mean, Kathy's kind of tall and Sally's very, very petite.
Very
isn't she?
petite, yeah. Kathy was a bigger person. Sally was kind of petite. And of course, the one thing about that too was Kathy Selvin. That was the first woman, American woman, to do an EVA.
Yes.
To do a spacewalk was on this flight.
And that was Challenger's sixth flight in just October '84. So she only waited about less than a year and a half between flights there. And
Yep.
Sally was training for another flight, her third flight, when the Challenger accident
And again, it was
happened.
just so neat to work a mission that Sally was flying on. And this is one. This is a picture of the OSTA 3 payload going in the level 4 area. The engineer, if you could see him with the beard cut him in the background, he was Louis Montezuma. He was actually responsible for installation of this. This was basically a radar experiment that flew OSTA 3, and it had a number of other experiments. I won't get into that. But I just want to show a picture of this in level 4, the hardware going in for one of the second flight for Sally.
And interesting, you had to build all the scaffolding, so to speak, to access to things and work on it.
Yep.
And that all disappears and put it in the payload bay.
And then this is the second one. This is the ORS, orbiting refueling system, and that's me on the far left with the black hair and I'm over.
Yeah, okay.
Over.
Yeah.
Well, I can't get it, but it's the first. Yeah, the person on the. So
Looking
basically,
down.
looking down on the left. And again, this is all level 4 area. Getting the hardware ready for that mission that eventually Sally would fly. And I guess I wanted to do a summary of kind of some of the work that we did and how we basically linked to Sally on these flights that she flew.
Some of these people you never see again. Of course, some pass away, but this is what our Shuttle Fest is all about.
Yeah.
Mikey, that you're involved in, is trying to have a little homecoming for you all once a year. That it's always great to see people like that. You ever bump into anybody from level 4 you hadn't seen in a while, like the grocery store?
Oh, sure. We're going to stay in touch. Of course, now in today's world with email and all that, we've got a distribution list that even after you retire from NASA, we can find you. Anybody, literally over the planet. We got friends that actually, some of them living in Australia, New Zealand, in Europe. So yeah, we stay in touch with all of them, even though it's been long ago since we worked together. We still see each other. We try to do reunions, like our Space Lab 1 reunion, or some of the big missions we worked. We'll try to do an anniversary reunion kind of thing, get everybody together.
Well, I mentioned that to our friends watching today. They include Dave Stingy, Doug Forrest, Mike Jokums, Dean Babcock, Man Space there. Martin's are watching. Mitch. Because think of the jobs you've had. And I've noticed in my few years here on the Space Coast that space workers like reunions. They like getting together. They have once-a-month luncheons, some of the groups. And, the companies I work for, like Newsweek Magazine, Associated Press, a couple other hometown places, never ever get together. There's never an opportunity to get together with a bunch of, Associated Press photographers, for example, that we would be together. It's just a great community and very unique, I think, to America. Am I again hitting the nail on the head there? Is that
absolutely?
Please tell me I'm wrong.
No,
but
no.
I love that about you people, that you keep in
thank
touch
you,
with
Mark.
each other. Really.
Thank you. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It was. We got to where we basically, we're our best friends on the planet were people we worked with. Okay, that's just the way it was.
It's great to have email lists and stuff like that to reach out. Hello to William Whiting. Hope he's doing well. And Mark UCX watching. You met Mark.
Yeah.
And his brother Tom. Gary Gerald just got off his tractor. He brought us some Vidalia onions. Did I give you some of those?
I think you did. I think you gave me one of them. Yeah.
I think I gave you some your other time here. Glad to have Gary and his wife Donnie. Yeah. And Carlton Bailey's watching, of course, CB
great.
there after
Awesome.
taking a great photograph of the 2 boosters coming in that I'll be posting on Facebook after our program today. Carlton Bailey, you nailed it. Very sharp photos there. So,
And if we could just stay right here just for a second.
Yeah.
Kind of now, how does this all tie into level 4? Okay, well, between these 2 flights, my boss called me in the office one day, and he says, there's a couple people from NASA headquarters here, and they want to talk to a couple of these level 4s. How is this concept going? Because it was a pretty neat concept to have a NASA do this work. And so these people from NASA headquarters came down, and my boss says, dump your brain, tell them anything you want, good or bad. You're not going to be, nothing's going to happen to you. You tell them exactly what you think about the level 4, the process, and whatever else you want to talk about. So these 2 people from headquarters sat me down, started asking me questions, and I dumped on them. I said, the level 4 is the best thing I think that NASA could do. I think it's something that should be expanded to other parts of NASA, not just here at Kennedy Space Center. And I try to give them examples of where I thought things would be. And this needs to be expanded and continued into the future. I mean, and it kind of talked about space station and going to the moon and Mars and how level 4 and that concept would be good. And then of course they're absorbing all this and taking it all in. And so that happened. And it's been about an hour or so. I thought it was kind of neat, and it was fun. And then they went off, and I had never heard anything after that. So I figured, well, they took they're just out there searching data, and they got data, and then they'll figure out maybe what to do with everything he told them. And so I wanted to give that as a lead-in, because from that leads into actually how I get in touch with working with Sally directly.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. If you notice the hole in his heart here on our green screen,
Yeah,
don't be mesmerized
you see
by
it moving
that.
there,
Yeah, that is so interesting. But you got a couple other pictures here. The payload.
Okay, yeah. And so what happened on the 41G? Once we got into space, you can see OSTA 3 in the foreground here. The antenna kind of stuck. It wouldn't. It was the three panels that would open up in space. That didn't work, and so it wouldn't work. And so what happened is Sally had to get in there with the arm and actually give it a little nudge. And this is a good picture of the end of the arm going in and giving that antenna a little nudge to basically open it. There's latches that held it in place for launch, and those latches for some reason wouldn't release.
So it's really just the bulk of the thing, just tapping it,
just tapping it enough,
there, just to kind of
spring it loose, basically.
And it worked, huh?
And it worked. And she had to do the same thing to stow it. We had to come home. We had to bring those two panels together on top of the third, and again it wouldn't latch. And so she had to take the arm and kind of push down on it to make it work. So Sally basically, even though she had nothing to do with those three payloads, she helped us basically bring that thing home, because if she didn't have the arm and she wasn't able to do that, we probably would have lost this.
And to know that knowledge with how valuable the arm become an extension, of course, on there. Now they had some tolerances and data of because every little movement of this has got a data track on it, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sure does.
Wonderful.
So that was just neat. Okay, now we get into, of course, what happens in January of '86. We have Challenger.
Sally's right there behind.
Yeah, and this is Sally behind me there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's right there.
And this is a picture of everybody who's on the Rogers Commission, and that's Sally there in the front. I just wanted to kind of really
Neil Armstrong right there.
Yeah, and then Rogers in the middle. And so basically, this was the team. And there's Sally behind me, and I just wanted to so this was formed. This Rogers Commission was formed. Sally was a member of that team, to trying to figure out, of course, what happened. And then the report came out, which I think is the next picture. Okay, this is the actual commission report on the accident, and of course it's out there to read. And one of the things that came out of that was they were thinking and looking, and it sounded like NASA was losing its leadership in space. Because of this and other things that were going on, they says, we need to figure out a way to basically get NASA to retain the leadership, become a leader again in space, and maintain that leadership. And so what, after this commission report and after the commission was done, James Fletcher, who was the administrator at the time, went to Sally and says, I want you to form a group to figure out what the strategy would be in the future to regain our leadership in space. Sally, you lead up this team. Okay? And I think, let's see what the next picture is. Okay, well, this is, actually, so what happened was, we can go back to the previous one. And so what happened was, so she formed this team, and it was only a small part of the team that she would end up becoming, the end of the report she would come out with later. But we were one part of a team. And what it was one person from each NASA center was on this team. It was called Task Group 1A. And after it was about June of '86, my boss calls me, Dean Hunter, great boss, one of the best bosses I ever had. He calls me in his office and says, you've been selected as a sole KSC representative to be on this team led by Sally Ride. And I go, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, how did that happen? He goes, evidently, those people from NASA headquarters you talked with a few years ago and you dumped your brain to and you basically spilled your guts. Evidently, they liked what you said. He says, I'm just guessing this is kind of what happened. And when it came up for Sally, they says, hey, we talked to this guy at Kennedy Space Center, and we think he would be the perfect person from Kennedy to be on your team. And so I got selected as the sole person from the whole Space Center to be the KSC representative to her Task Group 1A that she led up. And so he says, oh, by the way, yeah, she's coming here this afternoon to to introduce her, and she wanted to meet each of the people that were selected and get to know them and kind of describe what the process was. I go, what? I'm going to meet Sally, and of course we're sitting in the room, my boss and I. Sally walks in, very humble. She comes, shakes my hand. I'm Sally Ride, like she really didn't introduce herself,
Right.
but she did that. That's the way Sally was. And so we sat down for about an hour, and she described this team she's forming is to come up with a strategy on how NASA could regain its leadership in space. And you've been selected as the KSC rep, and basically what it is, it'll be about a year assignment, and after a year, you'll pick somebody else to fill in. So basically a year, and then I'll pick another KSC employee that would be on the team, and it kind of went on in the future kind of like that. And we would meet regularly, and the idea is we would go to each of the centers. So maybe once the team would come down to Kennedy, and then once the team would go to Ames Research Center, or they'd go to Langley, or they'd go to Marshall Space Center, and we'd work together over the course of this year to come up with a strategy on how to regain leadership in space. And I just go, wow. And then so basically that's from June 86 to about July 87, I was a member of the team. I still had my job here at Kennedy. I would fly back and forth and still do work here.
Hotels, airplanes,
Yeah.
rental cars.
Sometimes
That
we'd
was your
fly in a
life for a solid year and a half, huh?
Sometimes we'd fly in a NASA jet. Sometimes we'd go commercial.
What was that like, the experience of just enjoying that? Knowing, I mean, you were doing something serious that doesn't have a happy thoughts to
Right.
it, the demise of Challenger, but
Well, it was amazing here.
no, I mean, here you're looking at the future. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's the
right,
thing.
right.
Is I'm on a team that's going to kind of, almost, I won't say direct, but give NASA some good pointers on how to lead in the future. Me, little Mikey Haddad, what the heck is this about? And so I was blown away. It's like, wow, this is really neat. And as you get into it, and all the people that were on the team were very, very, they were awesome people. Everybody from each of the centers was awesome. Everybody was kind of very unique in what they did, and very, so it was just a great group of people to be with. Everybody, we just worked together, and over the course, over that year, we would have these meetings, and every once in a while Sally would come in, sometimes we wouldn't. And it was just neat being able to get with these people from all these different backgrounds, all these different centers, and figure out a way, okay, well, where do you even start? I mean, where do you have to look at, okay, where we're at, and how would we do that? How would we go about being a leader in space again, even though it seemed like we were not a leader anymore, but just to make us a leader. And so it was wild. It was a wild.
1988, 1889.
This was from 86, June of 86 to July of 87.
Okay.
It was a year that we had to do this.
Oh, that
task.
was quick after the
Yeah.
disaster of January 86. I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
It was pretty quick that this all happened, started. And so that was basically a test group 1A, and that's when I got to know Sally really good. We spent a lot of time.
Tell us one story about her that we would be surprised to know about her.
Well, she was very private. Okay, she's a very private person, which is just 100% fine. But publicly, she just had energy to burn. And again, like I said, when she took on a task, she would talk to you about anything, anything as far as what work that we're doing. I ask you about the work you did, and we'd mention about STS-7's 41G, and you'd see a smile on her face. Hey, we worked on those pages. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh, I remember beating down the antenna on OSTA 3. Oh yeah, that was you, kind of thing. And so it was just a number of stories that would, but it was all work related. Like I say, it's very private. Personal stuff was private, which is fine. So it was just a lot of fun. She was a trooper. She was a very smart, of course. She had a way of talking, very diplomatic, but she if she needed a hammer, yeah, she would. But she was always the kind of way she tried to take the diplomatic approach on a lot of things. And when we get a little farther, I'll explain how important that is.
Well, we're enjoying this conversation with our good friend Mikey Haddad here, talking about the year that he spent on Sally Ride's committee that was looking to how to put America back as a leader in space in the eyes of the world after the Challenger accident. I think we might need that committee again here in 2024. I don't know. China just brought back 4 pounds of rocks from the backside of the moon, South Pole.
They're doing awesome stuff.
Yeah, they are. So, but we're not going to digress into that. We're going to share some more with what Mikey Haddad's got going here.
Okay.
I noticed a little bit of fun out at the famous, legendary
Beach House. Yeah.
Yes.
This is actually in July time frame of 87. That's me on the left, and these are some of the members of the Task Group 1A. If you notice the guy on the right with the long hair and beard, that's Scotty Vongen.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
Scotty?
when it
That
came,
is not Sally, though.
that's not Sally Ride,
Okay.
no. But this is basically a picture of us at the astronaut beach house here at Kennedy Space, and this was for one of the meetings we had here at Kennedy. And the reason I wanted to show this is just some of the members of the team. And Scotty, what happened was when the year was over, they came to me and said, "Who do you think at Kennedy should replace you on this team?" And Scotty was the first guy that came to mind. And so Scotty ended up being, followed up as he became the KC rep to Task Group 1A.
He's been on the show a couple times with your group, the Level 4 guys, and helped us again a lot at Shuttle Fest 3. And we need to get him back on a one-on-one here. I'll be in contact with another great guy, Scott Vongen, yeah.
Okay, so next picture is
So
basically
great, I can't remember how to say his name.
well, you say it a lot better than other people really butchered his name in the past.
Scott
on other
Vongen,
things, so.
yes, he was actually a backup astronaut. I've seen a reference where they thought he was an astronaut on Astro 1.
Yes.
But it was listed wrong because they didn't have Sam Durant's there. They had him.
Okay, this picture of the astronaut beach house, it's not even this color anymore. But this is kind of what it looks like. Just I wanted to show everybody what a
Ooh,
picture of
cars.
That's actually that red van on the left. That's my van.
Okay.
Everybody called it the hippie van.
Ford
It was a Ford van, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was. But I just wanted to show a picture, kind of the astronaut beach house. I think it's actually painted yellow now. But again, it's one of those houses and this is a picture of us, Task Group 1A, inside the astronaut beach house during one of our get-togethers. You can see we're eating pizza. We got the display up, and we're just trying to go through and figure out.
High tech, that whiteboard display back then, wasn't it?
Well, that was one of the whiteboards, and it was neat because what you could do is you could hit a button and it would take a picture of that, and you get a hard copy. That's how you used to get a hard copy off of these. I forgot it was called, I think, the Panaboard or something. And yeah, it was kind of as technology of that day.
That's a great shot. I've not seen that kind of angle there in the beach house there. I've seen other pictures inside of it, but that's quite interesting.
Yeah, we're just having pizza and trying to figure out what to do here.
Those you don't know what the beach house is, share with what the beach house is all about.
Okay, basically when Kennedy Space Center they were going to form Kennedy Space Center, there was actually a city out here long time ago, and there were houses out, I can forget the name of the city it was, but where Kennedy Space Center had taken over there were a number of houses. Well, of course, when the government bought the land to develop Kennedy Space Center, all the houses basically they flattened except for this one. They saved this one. It's kind of a special house. We call it the Astronaut Beach House. It's kind of a place where the astronauts can go with their families before the mission to kind of have some private time. They're under the gun all the time, and everybody's flashing pictures and doing stuff. This is kind of a remote place out on the basically on the of course, right along the beach, on the southern part of the Kennedy Space Center, where they can go and just have some private time, which is really good. Which is really good to do, and
contemplate things and talk. Yeah, great.
Yeah, just go over family stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so, of course, when they're not using the house for missions, we could rent the house out for stuff like this, where we can do meetings and stuff at. And this is just one of them that
I know our good friend Hazel Banks. Hi, Hayes. She watches Stay Curious and has supported us financially for decades. Hazel had her retirement party there.
Okay.
When she left NASA in 1970. Been 70 or 1. I think she left after Apollo 15.
Yeah, this has been there since the Apollo program.
Yeah, very, very. And it's been talked about in the movies and documentaries and so forth. But that's a great shot of it. Yeah, Marty.
It was there before Apollo.
Yes, it was there before Apollo. It was actually one of the houses that was there even before KSC was KSC. Like I say, you go out there in the weeds and you'll still see foundations.
What did you see inside there that you were like, oh wow? Like a bottle of liquor signed by Mercury astronauts or something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It was a whole liquor cabinet was in there. When it was nice because they had upstairs, downstairs, with the kitchen and all that, bedrooms and stuff. And I think just seeing the liquor cabinet I thought was kind of unique because you're not supposed to have any alcohol at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh.
But the astronaut beach house was a little different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as it types to unwind as well as contemplate your future, getting on top of a rocket. No matter whether it was a Redstone or a Saturn V or the shuttle.
And one day I'll have to tell you about when I went out there one afternoon on the Sunday.
All right.
Okay. This is basically a hearing that happened in '87 where Sally went in front of the House of Representatives during one of the hearings. It was basically a kind of a status of how's things going, and we got a chance to go up there for this hearing. At least I was able to go there. And of course, she's in front of all the politicians, and it's not a, you know, sometimes not a very happy place. Let me put it that way, because there's people on around this hearing board that they did not like the space program at all, and you could tell right away the ones that were interested, the ones that says, okay, we need to do something here to help the space program, and other ones that just want to kill it. And so this is basically Sally when she went in front of him. And the reason I brought this up was when we went to listen to that, it was amazing because Sally had a way. She was very articulate. She had a way, and I don't know how else to say this, to make people realize you're an idiot and you don't know it. Okay, and that's what happened with some of these politicians. Some of these politicians would just ask the most ungodly, dumbest, I hate to say, dumbest questions. And it was the attempt to basically try to flip her up or try to, mess her up or try to get her confused. And no, I ain't going to do it with Sally. No way. And so she would just basically respond in a nice diplomatic way and then basically told them they were idiots without them realizing that. Huh. And the reason I wanted to say that was it was just the way Sally was, where when I'm sitting there watching her, and she's just tearing these people apart, and they don't understand it. She's making them look ridiculous by trying to be so negative and trying to do so much to mess her up that she ain't gonna, no way, you're not gonna do that to Sally. And I just wanted to bring that up as one of the things I really liked about her was that she had a way of she can hold her own in any situation. And this is the House of Representatives, NASA government. She went in there and she had no problem.
That's an awesome story there. I know there have been congressmen that have asked shuttle astronauts, how many times did you go to the moon? Mm-hmm. And they're a shuttle astronaut, and they do a little research there, but so that
was interesting. So
that is very good stuff there.
Okay, then what came out of this was her report. It was called the Ride Report, and this is a picture of the cover of it, called NASA Leadership in America's Future in Space. This was released in actually 87. Now, it was in July 87 was when she was in the House of Representatives. So she said, well, we're not completely done. And this report came out a month later. We had a piece of this. There's a lot of people that fed into this report because a number of things came out of it. One was how do we regain leadership, and then 4 initiatives, okay, that came out of this report. And so we only had a small piece, and then I think the next picture. Okay, what this is kind of what we worked on was how do you understand actually what leadership in space is, and how do you realize, okay, you're leading, you're not leading, and how do you get to be leaders if you're not?
Okay.
And what this is, you look on the left, kind of the vertical is space. You got low Earth orbit, high Earth orbit, inner solar system, outer solar system, and then deep space. Okay, that's that's going from Earth all the way to as far as you can see out in deep space. That's the one up and down. Across the bottom is basically, okay, you're pioneering. That's the first time you're doing that. Okay, complex second. Basically, okay, you've been there a number of times. You're getting kind of familiar with that area. Operational is basically you become operational. You start doing operations in that zone of space. And then commercially viable. Basically, you've turned it over and it's become a commercial effort. And again, as you see today, low Earth orbit commercial is space station, SpaceX. Okay, that's all basically where we're at today. And this is kind of our way of saying, okay, this is how we think we need to show how to regain leadership. And it would be, okay, how do we regain leadership in low Earth orbit? How do we regain leadership in high Earth orbit? How do we gain leadership in the solar system? And so this is kind of a matrix. We call it the leadership matrix. That then you would fill in those boxes on things that we think would be something that NASA should do to gain leadership in that area. For example, high Earth orbit, or even like, inner solar system, the moon, for example. Okay, how do you become a pioneer in the moon? Okay, we were pioneers in Apollo. Okay, complex second. Maybe that's now we're going back to the moon. Operationally, you live on the moon. Commercial, kind of what the Chinese are doing now. They're bringing rocks back. And so this is kind of was our piece of that report, was coming up with this leadership matrix and filling it in on how we would gain leadership in those different areas. That was our job.
Logical. I like the logic. Tom Celentano says he's listening in his car while driving, Marty.
Excellent.
Keep your eyes on the road, Tom, but thank you very much. Yes. And we got Tom Colbert's watching from Ireland.
Sweet. Welcome.
And Larry Pushkar, one of our Michigan friends, he's watching, says hello to us, Marty. And Tommy Usiak is saying he's nice to see Mikey
hey,
today
Tom.
here. So And Dean Babcock agrees with me 100%. That's very dangerous, Dean, as Marty will tell you. But hopefully he's agreeing with me, the love and brethren of the space community. So, and John the Beagle Dad says, I recently read Truth, Lies, and O-Rings. Oh, man, he said. I'm not
Oh, yeah.
familiar with that book. It must be about the program there. So.
About Challenger.
And Steve Jokum says Mike's ability to regale the history of shuttle payload processing is incredible.
Oh,
Great
thank you very
shows.
much. I appreciate that.
And thank
Thank
you. He's
you.
up on the shores of Lake Michigan, and one
Thank
of
you
our
very
great
much.
supporters too. In fact, he's responsible for our Shuttle Fest. I gave you a couple of these
Yep.
on there. Thank you, Steve Jokums. We've got these Shuttle Fest decals now. That he
Excellent.
supplied us with for our swag bags and other things at Shuttle Fest. So,
Sweet.
Mikey, let's wind up your talk here,
Okay.
my friend.
Okay, so basically, yeah. So this is our part, and then the other part, the other sections of it is this is one of the 4 initiatives. One was Mission to Planet Earth. We can go through these pretty quick.
Okay.
Which of course is looking down on Earth and helping, doing whatever we need to help. The
And this
planet.
is 1988,
87.
87.
This
even.
report
So
came out in 1987. Again, this is online. Just look up.
35 years later,
Yeah.
think of what has been accomplished.
This thing has been accomplished, yeah. And again, this is online. You can go ahead and see this report and read it. So I'm not going to talk too much about details. I'm hoping you can go read it because it's amazing. The next initiative, second initiative, was exploration of the solar system, going out and exploring the solar system. And again, we're kind of doing that now. Outpost on the moon, kind of what we're talking now with Artemis. We talked about it during Constellation program, and again now for Artemis, and then humans to Mars. So this is the big 4 big initiatives that were in her report on things that, initiatives that NASA could do. One, multiple ones, all 4. And it
So
does-
Sally Ride wanted to go to Mars too,
Yeah.
right? She
Yeah.
knew it was essential as part of the program for NASA to
oh yeah.
be thinking about.
Hope to be a leader in space. If you can get to Mars before anybody else, well, that's pretty much shows you're a leader in
Right.
space. And the next one I just wanted to show real quick. Now, this is 1987. Okay. Our first component that flew on station was 1998, 12 years later. Look at that picture up there and the space station evolution. It's basically what it looks like today.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And what she did here, in these initiatives, and I won't go into much detail because I want people to kind of read this report itself, but it uses space station as a jumping point to go beyond low Earth orbit. And so I just wanted to show the concept of, hey, this is 12 years before we flew, and it looks pretty doggone good.
Excellent. It was actually called Freedom at
Yeah,
that time
it
of
was
the
Freedom.
report.
Yeah.
And Beltsville, Maryland area was the NASA Washington headquarters for it. Charlie Mars was part of that, our godfather.
Okay. And then Office of Exploration, she actually, I guess, created the Office of Exploration. It's one of the things that's big that she had done
Okay.
before she left NASA. And I just wanted to show that because she did lead that up when she first, she was, I guess, generated it and created it. And then, okay, this is a picture of Sally in 2003. This is an event at UCF. We try to stay in touch, even though in 1987, she left-
UCF, let's tell that acronym.
University of Central Florida in Orlando.
There you go.
That's where I went to college, got my degrees there.
There you go.
We tried to stay in touch, even though in 1987 she left NASA to go to the private sector. She did an event at UCF, and it was a Sally Ride. It was like a science festival for basically young women.
Packed house.
It was a packed house, and again, it was very. I went over there to see her, because she was close. She was very busy, so I only got a chance to see her during kind of a break. But you could just tell how happy she was doing this kind of stuff. She just loved the idea of getting young women, young girls involved in science, and she is just. It was near and dear to her heart. So this is one of the events in 2003 here in Orlando, and that was basically the last time I physically saw her. We tried to stay in touch other ways, but that was the last time I was actually get to see her.
Sally Ride went on to write several award-winning children's books, and the Sally Ride Science Center in San Diego, California, is an amazing facility that is on my bucket list when I get on the West Coast to see. Here's a beautiful picture of her holding a shuttle that became the inspiration for the Cradle of Aviation Museum in the Grumman facility. What town in Long Island, Marty?
Gosh, Garden City? I really forget.
Okay. In I forget Long Island. So, there are no. What is it? Anyway, it's on my bucket list too. There, it's one of the great museums there. This is
I'll be there in August.
Okay.
Marty's going to be up there in August, so take me a picture of that, Marty. This is the unveiling of this statue. That's what
That's
the
sweet.
blue is there, and very sweet statue.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention too, real quick, on the previous photograph, I got this. She had done an interview with the Harvard Business Academy only a few weeks before she passed away. Okay, so if you go to the Harvard Business, I think just Harvard Business Academy, Sally Ride, it's an audio interview of her, and this again, it's a few weeks before she passed, and that was a picture they had in that article magazine. And I just thought it was a great picture of her with the shuttle, and so basically that was just like I think weeks before she had actually passed away.
Excellent, excellent. Marty, where is it in Long Island, the Cradle of Aviation?
I was correct. Garden City.
Oh, way to go, Marty!
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He's a Long Island native himself, and from Hicksville. Up
Okay,
there.
wow.
And I've met a lot of Long Island people. Of course, a lot of them were Grummies that worked on the lunar module, some of Marty's friends and so forth. But I've been to Jones Beach. That's on Long Island, isn't it? Yep, been there a couple times. And
Yeah, sure.
all right. Well, everybody, thank you for staying curious with us today. One last picture of Sally, her official space flight picture there. And how she signed her name, I think is always interesting there. Just Sally Ride will be remembered, I hope, and she should be 100 years from now. What do you think?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, not just being the first American woman in space, but just the things that she's left after she's gone. I mean, all the people, just not girls, that she's influenced. She influenced me. It was awesome to be able to work with her for a year.
How
So
did she influence you? Any
It just
disciplines or things?
Yeah, I think just the way she was able to diplomatically. See, sometimes I'll fly off the handle. I get really, and I just say what I should say. And she had a real neat way of kind of grabbing the reins and telling in a diplomatic way and achieving the same thing. And I learned that, even though I still don't do that much anymore. That was something that I tried to learn from her. That's a great way of handling situations, is to be able to just keep your cool and just diplomatically talk and explain something that you totally disagree with, whatever the person said to you, or question they asked or something. That's probably one of the things. And again, she just was humble. The way she would always introduce herself as Sally Ride, even though everybody on the planet knew she was. She was still that kind of person. She always introduced herself as Sally Ride, and just to stay humble, no matter how popular you get. Kind of, you're still just a human being. So,
Some of the great ones like Sally Ride, they and others have a character to them, because I've been told Neil Armstrong was like that. He usually introduced himself, "Hi, I'm Neil Armstrong." Like, you don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And that's what a lesson of life and humility, and yet you get more out of people maybe doing that. So we certainly got a lot out of you, my friend. What
Well, it
a
was a lot.
terrific personal stories.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering the questions I had, because there are probably some that would love to have out there. And we appreciate everybody watching today that I mentioned as I'm looking at my smart tablet there. Tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to go around the solar system, around space a little bit there, see what's happening in the news of the day.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about that Chinese 4 pounds of rocks they brought back. The second time China's harvested rocks on the moon and brought them back. Russia did it 3 times in the 80s. We've never done that. We brought 900 pounds back with 6 missions to the moon and on the lunar module in Apollo, but never done it robotically. So that is something that, are you checking your box? Are they ahead of us because of that or not?
Well, does that show leadership in space?
Yeah.
That's a question.
Interplanetary leadership, it looks like. But anyway, Mikey, again, thank you very much. We will look forward to him coming back in July, featuring something from the missions of July, or whatever you want to talk about, my friend. Certainly interesting today to be, and really appreciate all of you staying curious today. Marty, thank you. Very great job. Our intern, Logan Cope from the East Eastern Florida State College. Thank you, Logan, for setting up the show today. They're a great team. Logan's learning some stuff, and Marty's getting a little break from the action once in a while. So until next time, friends, tomorrow when we talk some current events, and we're going to talk about Asteroid Day. That's this weekend in Luxembourg, okay? I'm Marquette saying we can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.